Hello out there, welcome back to this edition of Advancement Live. My name is Ryan Catherwood. I'm coming to you live from the grounds of the University of Virginia here in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I am the Director of Digital Strategy in the University Advancement Office. Advancement Live is part of the Higher Ed Live Network, a series of professional development shows, podcasts, and so much more on the brand spanking new higheredlive.com website. You're obviously there right now checking it out, but do peruse around the brand new site, which is fantastic, so we're thrilled to introduce it to everybody. Be a part of this broadcast by submitting questions through the back channel using the hashtag HigherEdLive. I'll be monitoring that hashtag throughout the course of the broadcast, and I will have the questions the best I can submitted to both Jillian and Mike during the course of the show. Make sure to subscribe to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. You can get information about upcoming shows on all of the channels, as well as new content on higheredlive.com. Before I introduce my guests, I would like to share with you our sponsors for Higher Ed Live. iModule Software is the leading constituent engagement management provider for educational institutions. iModules delivers an integrated online platform transforming how institutions strengthen constituent relationships and achieve fundraising success. And Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. Check out M. Stoner's latest groundbreaking book, Follow the Leader, authored by Dan Ziantz and edited by Michael Stoner. Filled with insights, anecdotes, and profiles of leaders who have successfully used social media in their roles as college and university presidents, this book offers sound advice to novices and experts alike, and for those who advise them. We're tweeting out a link to that now. Be sure to check out Follow the Leader. Okay. Gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Jillian and Mike. Mike Sciola is the Associate Vice President of Institutional Advancement and Director of Career Services at Colgate University. And Jillian Arnault is the Alumni Engagement Coordinator, also at Colgate University. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you guys today because we have a really unique organizational concept happening at Colgate University, one that I'm looking forward to highlighting today on the program. Mike, can we start with you in terms of a little bit of background as far as the organizational structure and reporting lines for the Career Services program there at Colgate? It's a little bit different than at a lot of universities.
Absolutely. So I should give you a little bit of background about Colgate. So we're a small liberal arts institution in upstate New York. For those of you who are not up here, it's negative 15 degrees today. Career Services traditionally reported to the Dean of the College Office, so part of our Student Affairs Division. And back in fall of 2012, we moved Career Services reporting to the Advancement Division of the institution. Institutional advancement at Colgate includes our fundraising major gifts function, our major events and programs for the university, career services, and alumni relations. So integrating career services with the alumni development and alumni relations arm of the institution was a strategic move on part of the institution, and we're into our third year of that experiment, and we're seeing really great results.
And I think that one of the interesting things about your organizational sort of shift is that in a lot of universities, the Career Services unit is underneath Student Affairs as opposed to embedded underneath University Advancement. Can you share a little bit why that makes sense for you guys at Colgate, and perhaps more broadly why that makes sense?
Sure. I think if you think about what a student's experience is nowadays, in particular to get into a place like Colgate, you have to be an excellent student. And for all of our institutions, by the time seniors are in their senior year, they're at the top of their profession. Nobody's better at being a student than a college senior. And then at the end of their senior year, we do this thing called commencement, but I like to look at it as their first big layoff. So they perfected their career, They know exactly how to be a student. They know how to work the system. And then there's this big, huge drop-off at commencement. And we do awful things like wear funny hats and have flags and bands play. And then we say, okay, go off into the world. And so I think for a lot of students, this is a real jarring moment. What we were thinking about here at Colgate University is how can we really rethink this introduction to the world of work. And we also thought about the fact that our students are typically students at Colgate for about 4 years. We graduate, almost everybody graduates within 4 years. But then there are alumni for 80 or 90 years. So we started thinking about how could we better introduce our youngest members of this lifelong community. And so by moving career services out of student affairs, which is by nature inwardly focused, housing and food and student activities and all the student life things, moving it to the division that actually is more outwardly focused. We're building and maintaining relationships with alumni worldwide, creating opportunities for generations to mix and match. It made sense that the career services staff and our programs were integrated there. So now what we're doing is we're looking at, from pre-matriculation, how do we start a conversation with our students about the power of the liberal arts education, the Colgate experience here, and early introductions to all the great alumni that are out around the world. So now what we're doing is our strategy is to start talking to students right at the very beginning of their Colgate experience, immediately give them access to alumni, create lots of robust opportunities for them to start imagining a life they haven't lived yet, and really leveraging those alumni connections. And it also gives us a new and very powerful way to engage our alumni. There's nothing more powerful from where I sit than engaging an alumnus back to campus with students. It just totally re-engages them. We have an alum on campus today who is class of 63. So I graduated, 52 years ago. This guy's had an amazing career. Came in last night. We had dinner with 15 students. He's here all day meeting individually with students. And tonight he's working through a Harvard Business School case that was written about him with our students. Our students are going to get an amazing experience out of it, but I've got this alum who's back, and he hasn't stopped smiling since about 5 o'clock last night. So you see how it's just a way of really signaling to students that you've joined a community for life, and that through career services, we're going to help you start thinking about all the ways that your life is going to be impacted, and quite frankly, how you're going to then give back to the institution.
Yeah, and I think that you nailed it when you described it as being student affairs being inwardly focused, whereas university advancement is outwardly focused. And so a career services program makes a whole lot of sense underneath the alumni engagement, university advancement structure. And I think that one of the most popular things that most of us do in the alumni engagement space that we work in is the idea of creating networks. And so many of those networks are really based around region, right? That we base our networks around, for instance, we have 94 UVA clubs around the world. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we haven't really developed here at the University of Virginia is a robust set of professional networks. And I think that that's something that you guys have been working on at Colgate, right?
Right. Right. So again, having career services part of the alumni relations and development staff has given the institution an opportunity to really rethink about that engagement strategy and think about how professional development and success can really be impacted by these associations through the Career Center and through the college. You were just mentioning this. A lot of our institutions organize alumni by affinity and by geographic location. And the way I look at it is affinity is actually nostalgia. So we've got the football alumni, we've got maybe it's a Greek letter house. Maybe it's one of your major, and then by location, so it's a geographic location. And a lot of schools pull alumni together by occupation. So if you can imagine having all the bankers in one room and all the dentists in another room. One of the things that happens is by organizing folks by occupation, the conversation gets pretty stale fairly quickly because it's the same people in the same room having the same conversations over the same cocktails. What we've done here is started thinking about networks. So we came in to Alumni Relations and Institutional Development. We looked at the alumni database and we looked for the sweet spot. We looked for complementary professions where we had a high number of alumni, where it would be mutually beneficial for alumni to alumni engagement. I'll give you an example, health and wellness. So instead of getting all the doctors together and all the bankers together, we took a look at a very important industry or broad industry that's very contemporary to our nation, and we looked and we identified everybody who was a practitioner, so a doctor, a nurse, a dentist. We took a look and we found all of our alumni that were researchers, so pharmacology, folks that are developing techniques and tools. Then we took a look at all of our finance folks that were venture capitalists that had a stake in health and wellness. Then we took a look at our alumni database for everybody that was in maybe a consulting role or maybe in government that was doing a regulatory role, and we created a health and wellness network. Now what we're doing is we're pulling together alumni in mutually beneficial discussions and events and opportunities where doctors are talking to researchers or talking to funders. And so we're creating these very robust conversations. And second, what we're able to do with these networks is we're able to identify where we have influencers. So folks that are actually leaders here, and we're able as an institution to let the world know where our graduates are having a big influence. Third, we're able to, because the Career Center is at the table, build incredibly robust on-ramps for our students. Job shadows, mentorships, internships, first-time hiring. And then, of course, it gives us an opportunity to speak to everybody, students to our top alumni, about the importance of nurturing and supporting the institution because they're building and bringing this robust connection. So we talk to students all the time about time, treasure, talent, and anytime we have an alum on campus or at one of these events, we let everybody know they're here because they want to be, not because they have to be, and that's what it means to be an alum of Colgate. It's cool stuff.
Absolutely cool stuff. One of my most favorite topics in all of higher education is just the stuff that you guys are working on. Yeah. And the idea of the professional network in terms of its value for alums, right, is pretty clear. Right. You've got that opportunity to get in the same room with folks who are in your same line of work. You alluded to the idea that the professional networks are also something that clearly benefits students, and that's something that we're talking about today more broadly. You had also alluded to the idea of the on-ramp, right? Or I should say it's debatable whether it's an on-ramp or an off-ramp, right? I guess it's an on-ramp, depending on how you look at it. But could you talk a little bit more about how the Professional Networks program benefits students as they near graduation?
Sure, and this is a good segue to Jillian's work too. For many of our professional networks, what we've asked the alumni leaders of the networks to do is to start helping us create immersion programs. So we bring a group of students down to New York City, for example, through our real estate network, and they spend 2 or 3 days in the city meeting all kinds of alumni that are in a very broad profession. And so they're seeing everything from construction to finance to development to sales. And so students are getting a very in-depth experience and exposure brought to them by alumni. And so we were able to kind of break down the myths that real estate is someone who's wearing a yellow coat, standing out in front of a house with the sign, but that it's a very robust and complex industry where there's lots of different roles, everything from finance to marketing to sales, so on and so forth. So the immersion programs are one example. The other thing that we're doing with each of the networks is we're specifically asking our alumni in the networks to provide Colgate exclusive internships. This way that we can get, and they're for our rising sophomores and rising juniors. So we're able to deliver to our students really amazing, rich internship experiences a year or two earlier than other campuses. So by the time my students are competing with your students for those top internships before their the summer before their senior year, my guys walk in with 2 years of really good experience, and it's all brought to them by the Colgate network. We do a whole bunch of other things that connect students with alumni, and this is Jillian's role as our alumni engagement coordinator. She's the one that goes out and finds all these great connections and then organizes all these amazing ways that we're connecting students together and alumni to alumni together.
Great. Perfect segue to Jillian. Jillian, when we talked a little bit before the program, we talked about a particular program that that you were working to facilitate called A Day in the Life. And that's sort of like a micro internship almost, right? Sort of a day-long immersion program. Could you tell viewers what that program's all about?
Absolutely. So A Day in the Life program, it's something that's been taking place in our office for years, but as recently we've reorganized it in part due to the professional networks and also just the shift to our move under advancement. So we've really been able to maximize this program. So as you mentioned, it's 1 day over winter break. For the first time this year, we limited it to just first and second year students. And we had over 350 students participate just from those 2 class years. So the idea of this program is to really get them to explore earlier in their Colgate career. So we want to expose them to this alumni network of which they're going to be a part, as Mike said, for the next 80 plus years. But we also want them to start thinking about their own careers and how they can explore, find out what they like, what they don't like. We have great participation. We're really lucky from our alumni for this program. They're really excited about it. Over the past couple of years, we get anywhere from 350 to 500 plus alumni sign up to host students for this 1 day program. So it's a really good way to engage alumni. It's a good way to get students out there. We've been really lucky. I think last year, or this past winter break, we had, I think, over 150 first-year students participate. So if you can imagine, they've only been on campus a few weeks, and then they sign up to participate in this program. So it gets them moving, but in a really safe and comfortable environment. So there's not too much pressure to have everything perfect by the time they show up for this job shadow, but to really just start exploring and asking those questions of an alum who's been through it.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that you're, right after a student arrives at Colgate, you're already having them think about the world after they graduate, right? I mean, that's almost unheard of, I think, in terms of how we're thinking about the idea of student affairs and relationships with alumni. The Day in the Life program sounds like it would be a challenging thing to administer from time to time. You've got a lot of alums, probably who are very enthusiastic. Students who may not know exactly what they want, right? And so there's got to be some sort of matching program, I would imagine. Can you talk a little bit about administering Day in the Life and some of the challenges there?
Sure, and there are many challenges that come with it, but I'm lucky that there's a bunch of us in the office that work on this quite a bit, and we're, I think now we've gotten to the point where we're kind of sorting through it. So there's the alumni recruitment starts towards the end of the summer, and so we actually use the professional networks really intentionally with the outreach for this. So we know we need a lot of people in finance in New York City, so we can go through the finance and banking network, specifically targeting those in those big metro areas where we know we traditionally have a lot of student interest, so we can really make sure the people coming in match up with the student interest that we've seen. So we start our recruitment early, try to get the word out to alumni. Fortunately, the word of mouth has been really helpful because those who have participated in the past continue to participate. And then we have them kind of complete an application to say what they're doing, what their company is doing, what their own role is, and then also the types of characteristics and skills that they are using on a daily basis. So that way when we flip it onto the students and they send in their application, we ask them the types of skills they would like to be using. You know, do they want to be working with people? Do they want to be researching in a lab? You know, what types of things would they like to be doing? So in addition to the geographic regions matching up, we make sure that the characteristics of the job really match up. So it's not a student signing up because they want to be, you know, working at Google, but instead it's them signing up because these are the skills that are interesting to them. This is the general industry interest, and then that we can match based on that. And that really goes back to our idea of exploring instead of just picking a career and going with it, but really exploring and trying to figure out how to ask those right questions. Another part of it that can be a bit of a challenge is making sure that the expectations of the students and alumni kind of line up. So we know that we're asking a lot of alumni to take in students for a day and plan this day. Many of them are taking them out to lunch, meeting with their colleagues, and we're very lucky that they plan a great day for them, but we want to make sure that the student is well prepared when they go into this. So we have prep sessions in addition to a fairly rigorous application process. We have mandatory prep sessions that we ask students to come to. So we talk to them about preparation going into it, the professional email correspondence, because many of them are first-year students, so they just got on campus. So we want to coach them. We want to talk to them about the day of, what they should have prepared, but then also how to follow up to make sure that they're continuing this relationship. We hope that it's something that continues well after that one-day job shadowing.
Great. And I actually had two follow-up thoughts pop into my head about Day in the Life program. The first one was, I would love to have a University of Richmond student here for a day, but I would kind of wonder what it is during the course of that day that I would have a student do, because it's one thing to have sort of a regular person, a regular student worker come in. It's another to try to come up with fun and engaging work-related constructs for a day. So how do you sort of help alumni brainstorm about what that day could look like? And then you sort of alluded to it about afterwards. How do you create a sort of stewardship process, right? So like, how do you make sure that there's a follow-through on the part of the student?
Right. So the first part, everyone's in such a wide range of positions that it's hard to say, here's what your day should consist of. But we do, in having alumni sign up, we give them some rubrics of here's some things that people have done in the past that seem to work really well. I know one student this year, they went in and saw a surgeon and they saw him perform 6 surgeries. So clearly they picked a really good day for the student to come. So we know that alumni do this intentionally. They pick the days that they're not sitting at their desk emailing all day, but instead are in a lot of meetings or meeting new people and that type of thing. So we do ask, given that students are typically on break and have some flexibility in their schedule, we've been really lucky that alumni try to make the day as interesting as possible, but sometimes, that you can't avoid a boring 3-hour meeting, and so they have a meet with a coworker, or often, if we have a few Colgate alumni in one company, they'll kind of share that student for the day, or a small group of students, and that seemed to work really well too, so that way when somebody needs to get down to maybe a more mundane task or a confidential task or something along those lines, they can go meet with a coworker and see kind of a different aspect of it, and that seemed to work really well.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And, we could move on just a little bit into one of the other really compelling programs that we had talked about before the program. It's you guys put together sort of like a blowout weekend, a career services blowout weekend, right? For sophomores, called your Sophomore Connections weekend. What's that one all about?
Yeah, Sophomore Connections is amazing. I love this program. This was our 3rd year of it. It used to be for seniors, but obviously we switched it in the past 3 years to be for sophomores. So it takes place in January, just the couple of days leading up to the start of the spring semester. It's a 2.5-3-day program that's bringing back this year about 400 sophomores, about half of our sophomore class, and over 125 alumni. So it's an intensive couple of days. We have industry panels, we have networking receptions, we have a keynote luncheon, we have panels that we have alumni on, we have faculty on, and we have staff from career services. It's a really robust program designed to introduce sophomores again to the alumni that are here just for them. I mean, there's no other reason for them to be in upstate New York in the freezing cold in January, but they're here just for the students. The students are really the only ones on campus because classes haven't started yet, so it's this great program where everyone's here and excited to be helping the students. So it's bringing together them, and then we also have a lot of people who have just been excited. We have the same alumni coming back year after year, but fighting with alumni who are trying to get into it. So we're in a really fortunate position now where we just have too many alumni who want to come back for it, and we actually just can't bring as many of them that email me on a constant basis asking to be back for the program. So we do pre and post-test surveys to see the room that students have grown over the course of the 3 days, and it's really impressive to see the results. Students are much more confident when they're thinking about their careers. They're much more confident networking because many of them haven't really networked prior to this weekend, particularly in such a long, and over the course of 3 days and with over 100 alumni. So it's great. It's an exciting program. Obviously, it's something that takes a lot of time and a significant budget, but we're really fortunate that we have so much support for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing, and one of the components of the Sophomore Connections weekend that we had talked about was not just that alumni are coming back, right, but that there are upperclassmen students that are involved in the Sophomore Connections weekend. So you've got these sophomores who are sort of the primary audience, right, and then you have the alumni who are coming in as experts. How are the upperclassmen students involved in the Sophomore Connections weekend?
Yeah, our upperclassmen are fantastic. So this year we had about 40 juniors and seniors come back for it as well. Again, coming back early to campus just to help out with this program. So their primary commitment over the weekend is what we call a summer expo. So here everybody, all the juniors and seniors create a poster and they present on their summer internship, research experience, volunteer opportunity, whatever it is they did over the summer, and the sophomores come and learn a little bit about it. So we really want to incorporate the peer-to-peer learning as much as possible, and this is one way that we found to be really successful. Sophomores, it's a really casual environment. Sophomores can go up to these juniors and seniors, ask them how they got their internship, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, all those things, what they learned, what they did on a day-to-day basis, So this has been really successful and something that now that all the juniors and seniors on campus have gone through Sophomore Connections themselves, they're excited to come back again because they have their commitment, but then they can go to the panels of alumni as well. They can network themselves. We use them at a networking reception where sometimes the sophomores can get a little intimidated, and we ask the juniors and seniors to walk around and help them with their quick elevator pitch, introduce them to alumni. So it really helps put the sophomores at ease, but it also helps the juniors and seniors. Obviously, they're growing professionally as well throughout it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I am most interested in, Mike, in our line of work is the idea of personal branding. Right? When you plug someone's name into Google or whatever a search engine is, and you hit return, and some stuff comes up. There's students I think are perhaps unaware of the impact of that digital profile, and then how to positively alter it, right, to work on your behalf. I think there's a whole line of alumni engagement programming that's possible in this space, right, around becoming a thought leader and learning how to blog and using social media. But you guys have some of the tenets of these programs in place, right? How do you help Colgate students create an effective online profile?
Sure. So there's a couple things that we do right from the beginning. So every time a student comes in and is meeting with our advisors, we're doing a audit. So if a student comes in to see me, I'll sit down and actually Google the student. I'll get into Facebook. I'll look at their LinkedIn profile, and then we'll sit and we'll start looking through. Well, how are they being represented online? It's created a few humorous and, quite frankly, a few embarrassing moments for students, but it's good for them to know what's out there. We create a few incentives for students. We've talked about our professional networks. One of the things that we've done is we've gone into LinkedIn. We've created for each of our professional networks a group on LinkedIn, and it's actually there's subgroups that are under our official alumni group in LinkedIn. That's a closed membership, so you must hold a BA from Colgate to get into that, and that's vetted by our alumni relations staff. And then for students, we say that if they have a profile that's been filled out with a professional photo, the education experience sections are filled out, they've got a good opening profile, we'll let them into that official alumni group as well, and then from there they can get into the professional network, some subgroups. So we've created a roadblock but a huge incentive for our students. So anytime that we have an event around the professional networks that students are involved in, we talk about the LinkedIn groups and we introduce them to them. We provide help in students in filling out their LinkedIn profile. So we've got specific resources online and actually as a handout here that helps students turbocharge their LinkedIn account. And then we also run periodically throughout the year professional photo booth. We call it a photo booth. But we have students come over dressed professionally from the waist up, and we'll take a picture for them that's appropriate for Facebook. We run, like every other school, we run networking workshops. Ours is called Network or Not Work. So it's you either network or you don't. But in that, it's not just how do you reach out to alumni or how do you reach out to professionals, but we talk a lot about digital presence there as well. So starting with orientation, when we're meeting with incoming freshmen, we're talking about the importance of your digital presence and making sure that things are locked down. And then throughout the 4 years that they're undergraduates, we're constantly talking about how do you leverage these resources. And then we talk about how do you do this well. And you probably have heard this theme through a lot of the programs we've been talking about and actually our move to alumni and development. What we're doing is we're introducing students to the idea of networking from day one. We give them access to all of our alumni, and we, instead of spending lots of time and effort managing a volunteer base, what we're doing is we're spending all our time and effort in teaching our students about the power and the proper etiquette of networking. And so all these programs and using the social media correctly is part of our overall strategy for preparing them for life after Colgate.
Yeah, really good stuff. And Mike, we got one more question that we had sort of pre-planned, and then I got a couple of questions that sort of popped into my head as this is Advancement Live, right? Around the idea of how career services may or may not be connected to fundraising.
Yeah.
But before we get into that realm for a couple of minutes, what would you say that you want seniors to be able to say about their career services experience, or how career services has prepared them for life after Colgate upon graduation day?
Sure. Yeah. There's three things that we're aiming for. One, we want students to have engaged with our office early and often, and through that engagement, they have really explored their own interests, their values, their passions, and they're prepared to be able to talk to other people about what they're really interested in and what they're really good at. Second, we want students to understand the world of work and how it's organized, for them to understand that there's, for every marquee opportunity, for every Google or Goldman Sachs, there are literally thousands of other organizations, and within those organizations there's hundreds of roles. So we want them to understand how the world of work is organized and where they might fit. And then third, we want them to be armed with all the tools, techniques, and capabilities and competencies to be an excellent job seeker, but also to know that ultimately what the goal is to be a really good career self-manager. So we're always telling our students that no one's going to look out for your career welfare better than you, and that it's not something that's passive, it's not something that happens by accident. What you really need to do is to have a plan and to be able to pull all these pieces together and then find opportunities and to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time. That's our goal.
That's great. And I alluded to the idea of a sort of an off-the-cuff question here about how, now that you are under the umbrella of university advancement, the division of how your unit is or is not separated from the goal of fundraising for Colgate. I imagine that there are ways to do that integration very lightly, right? You could have campaign slogans on beverage napkins at the Sophomore Connections event, and maybe that's it. Or you could, on volunteer forums that ask people to come back or be involved in day in the life, you could have, hey, give to Colgate as well. How do you see the opportunity or perhaps the drawback of infusing your work in career services with some of the other goals of raising money for Colgate?
Sure. So the 90 or 95% of fundraising is actually friend raising. So it's the engaging, building a relationship, building out a relationship, finding out what our potential donors are interested in. All of our donors certainly have an affinity for the college. They either have graduated here or they have students, their parents with students here, or they're long-term employers who have a vested interest in engaging with Colgate. So we've kind of got it started there, but a lot of that is maintaining those relationships long-term. So one, we represent an opportunity for the institution to do some fairly significant friend raising because we're connecting people who love Colgate with our most precious commodity, which is our current students, who are the best ambassadors for what's happening and what's great about the institution. By having career services integrated with alumni and development, we just have been able to explode those synergies and create. So a typical scenario that happens more than you would imagine is we have a major donor prospect that maybe has not been engaged or has been engaged poorly over the years. Often I and my colleagues in career services are an easy entree to get them back engaged. And because we're doing all this work and preparing our students to be really thoughtful and really great at networking, and they're prepared every time we connect them. They're pre-prepared, not to be disingenuous, but to quite frankly know the etiquette of it. Our alumni come back with a very new and renewed love of the institution and say, "Wow, it really is a great place." So that's one. The others, we present some really great opportunities for making asks for support, whether that's money or whether it's time or talent, that have an immediate payoff. The day in the life. You're talking about this surgeon that had a young person there to see 6 or 7 surgeries in a day. There's got to be a sense of pride for that alum of having engaged that young person there. I guarantee it happens. But we're also, Career Services is working closely with our development staff to build a war chest, if you will, in our summer grant funding process. So we've got a new $10 million goal to raise new endowment money so that students who have an unpaid internship or a low-paid internship or a paid internship that's far away, so it's expensive to get to, we're trying as an institution to make sure that financial means is not a barrier to getting these experiences. And that's a real compelling opportunity to fundraise. So we're very fortunate in that. We're building a new career center, and we're unique in the nation. I think there's very few campuses that are literally designing a new building for career services and imagining it as this nexus or this connector between undergraduate and the world. So we're creating, if you will, a great big glass jewel box that literally it's going to be a building that you can see through, so all the things that are happening you can see from outside. We opened and closed fundraising in about less than 3 months, and it's fully donor funded. And just so there's an excitement around there. So lots and lots of opportunities. I've got one more piece here, though. There is a bright line, however, that we have to be careful with, because one of the typical scenarios will be an alum of influence will say, give me the 1 or 2 students that I should hire. And so there's a bright line there that we have to negotiate not only with the alum but with our development staff, because they get very agitated if we don't instantly respond. We are career services, and our mission is to work with all students, so we cannot play favorites. So what we do is we're very careful to work with our alumni who are providing these opportunities to make sure we know exactly what they're looking for, so that we're very explicit to students of what the qualifications are, and then we deliver a well-prepared candidates. So that's one place. And then if we have an alum who's funded an internship endowment, for example, we have to. There's a bright line again about who's making the selection and how much influence they have. So we always have some negotiation to have. Everybody's been fantastic at that, and we've negotiated that very well over the last 3 years.
Yeah. Thanks. I have to imagine that that for sure the opportunity to friend raise in this sort of engagement capacity, helping to bring along students, paying it forward. You can use all sorts of different terms as far as helping to further along and make these great graduates of Colgate after. And also I have to imagine that there's a lot of passion once you get all that going towards your program as a a destination for funds, right?
Yes. Yep.
The career center that you're building, and certainly one of the things I'm most proud of my alma mater is establishing the Richmond Promise, which is as you alluded to, the idea that that money is not a barrier for internships for all students, and so they have made the promise that that is part of the Richmond experience is an internship.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jillian and Mike, for joining me today on Advancement Live. You guys really have a great program, and I think that you guys and just a couple other schools out there are really the model for how career services will begin to evolve. And it's not so much about counseling as it is about generating these really robust networking opportunities, learning experiences for people to interact. And to think about those environments in a more sophisticated way to broaden the mission of the university. So really great work you guys are doing at Colgate, and it was a great thrill to have the opportunity to chat with you guys here on Advancement Live. So thank you both.
Sure. Thank you.
Very good. Well, that will do it for today's edition of Advancement Live. My name is Ryan Catherwood. Do follow me on Twitter at Ryan Catherwood. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. And I look forward to seeing you all again next month on Advancement Live. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Take care.